Hello, everyone. Good morning. So in today's session, we're going to look at admin-related aspects of OIC, guys. In real time, when you start working in OIC projects, you would receive OIC instance link. You would receive OIC instance URL from a client. And along with the OIC instance URL, let me just close all other tabs. So you would receive OIC instance link from the client when you start working in projects, and you would get a username, and you would also receive the password. And as a developer, what is it that you normally do, guys? As a developer, integration developer, you would log into OIC instance with that username and password, and you would start doing the development work. You would log into OIC instance with a username and password. Okay, so you would access this OIC instance, log into it. And I've already logged in here, so that's why you're seeing a sign-in page. But usually when you access a URL, it would take you to a login page, and you would be logging in. With user one username, and I would be logging in as Prasad, but you log in with your username and password and get into the OIC instance. So this is what usually happens in integration projects. So you would receive the OIC URL, username and password from the client. You access that URL, log in, and then you go ahead and start building the required components for the project, whether it is integrations, VBCS, or PCS apps. But at least some of you are going to play the role of an integration lead. At least some of you are going to play the role of an integration lead. Okay. Now, when you play the role of an integration lead, just give me one moment, guys. When you play the role of an integration lead, yes, you also need to be aware of few steps that happen even before you log into it. So if you play the role of an integration lead, you need to understand where is this OIC instance created from, and how are the users created in that OIC instance, and how is access given as well. So if you're playing the role of an integration lead, if you just log into OIC instance and if you do the build activity, that would not be sufficient. You also need to understand where is OIC created from. So that brings us to OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So if you want to use any of the infra services that Oracle provides in cloud, then you would have to log into a screen called OCI, which stands for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, So you need to log into OCI first. I'll take you there and I'll show you, I'll give you an overview of that screen. And from there, we'll see how to create an OIC instance. Remember, it's not a typo, guys. OCI stands for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. OIC stands for Oracle Integration Cloud. So you need to log into OCI screen to create an OIC instance. And we'll also see how to create user and grant access of OIC instance to the users. Okay. So let's go ahead and see how those steps work. So the first step that you need to understand is, yes, you need to log into OCI account. So any client who wants to provision or use the services that Oracle provides in cloud, like Oracle Integration Cloud or any other service, they need to get a new OCI account for themselves. Okay. You need to get a new OCI account for themselves. So Oracle would, client would reach out to Oracle, and they would confirm to them saying that I want to use OIC instance from OCI. So client would get a new OCI account created for themselves, new Oracle Cloud account. And after the new cloud account is created for a client, how would they be logging into that instance? You need to use a URL called cloud.oracle.com. You need to use a URL called cloud.oracle.com. So this URL would take you into OCI screen, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure screen. And whenever a client gets a new Oracle Cloud account created for them, there would be a unique cloud account name assigned to the client. And usually it will be dependent on the name of the client. So if you're doing this for HSBC, usually the name of the client would be something like HSBC, followed by some random number there, followed by some random number. So yes, a client would have a new cloud account created for them first. And after that, they have to sign into OCI screen to be able to perform these steps, create a new OIC instance and all these steps. One important announcement, guys. I'm going to do this one more time towards the end of the session. I'm not going to give you access to OCI screen. And no client will do it either. We will not be giving you access to OCI screen, and no client will do it either in real time. We have given you access to OIC instance. This is where you log in and this is where you practice. And whatever steps we're going to see in today's session, it is only for your informational purposes. You cannot do hands-on, and you're not supposed to do it in real time as well. There would be the OCI administrator who does it. It's just that you should be in a position to answer a few questions that he asks you. And that's why I'm doing this session. So no hands-on, no practicals for what we are going to do in today's session. Please don't ping me in WhatsApp asking for Prasad, can you share OCI credentials? I'm not going to do that. Okay. So I'll just log into one of the OCI tenancy that I have got access to so that I can show you those steps. I'm going to share my screen back in a moment. Now I've logged into OCI screen. I've logged into OCI screen, cloud.oracle.com. And this is basically infrastructure as a service. Okay, so any client who wants to use any infra services that Oracle provides in cloud, they have to get a new cloud account, Oracle Cloud account. And after they sign in, remember what all options do you see here, guys? You would be able to see a lot of resources that you can launch. Say, for example, if your client has a custom Java application or a .NET application running on premise, and if your client wants to deploy it to cloud, what exactly OCI administrator is going to do? They would create a virtual machine first. So depending on what system the application needs to run. So if that Java application needs a Windows machine, so your OCI administrator is going to provision a Windows machine with a required configuration. And that application might need a database. So your client is going to provision one of the database in cloud, link them together. And if you also want to control who can access that application, we can create a network and set it up and put that network and put that application within that network or behind that network. And in case it is an application like an e-commerce application wherein you can expect heavy traffic on specific days, especially when you have deals, you can also put it behind a load balancer as well. So to keep it simple, if any client wants to deploy their infrastructure to cloud, any application, they have to get a new Oracle Cloud account. And here they will be able to see all the resources that you can use so that they can provision to deploy on-prem applications to cloud. And if you click on the navigator here, you will be able to see the complete list of infra services that Oracle provides in cloud. You will be able to see the complete services that Oracle provides in cloud, complete list of Oracle services. Now, we're not here to do a OCI session. We have a separate training course altogether for OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and that goes on for roughly 50 hours. And we talk about everything that you need to know as an OCI administrator in that. But why did we come in here, guys? We came in here because we need to understand how OIC instance is created from here by OCI administrator. So that's why we came in here. And what is this called as, guys? Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. It is basically, which type of a service is it, guys? Infrastructure as a service.
Infrastructure.
And what are the other leading vendors in the market for this? For infrastructure as a service, apart from OCI?
Yeah,
Amazon
AWS
Web Service,
also.
Amazon Web Services, Azure, GCP. So these are all infrastructure as a service providers, guys. So if I have on-prem applications and if I have to deploy them to cloud, I can either go to Oracle, have an account created, deploy the required services there, required infrastructure, and deploy my applications there. Or I can also go to Amazon or Microsoft or Google, get a new cloud account created there, and I can deploy my infrastructure there as well. So OCI comes under infrastructure as a service. Now from here, to create an OIC instance, we need to click on the menu option here, and you have to search for integration. And you click on integration. And after you click on integration, you need to choose the compartment here. Okay, so you select the default one. And the moment you choose a compartment, you will be able to see the OIC instances which are created by this client. Remember, every client will have only one OCI tenancy, guys. How many Oracle Cloud accounts does a client have? Only one. And whatever OIC instances are created by the client will be visible here. Okay, so we are able to see one OIC instance here. Now, what does OCI administrator would do? When we are about to begin a development work, we go to OCI administrator and we tell them, boss, we need OIC instance. And what OCI administrator is going to do, they would come in here, log into OCI, come into integration instances, and they would hit this button called create instance, and they would enter the details in that screen. Remember, I've logged into a free account. I don't have this option enabled to show you that hands-on, but when you click on this create instance button, immediately you will see a pop-up which looks like this. The moment you hit create instance, you see a pop-up which looks like this, and OCI administrator would have to enter the details here and create OIC instance. Now tell me one thing, guys, what are the typical phases that you have in a ERP implementation, guys? You have development, SIT, UAT, and production. Do we have different instances for each phase of the project, guys? Or do we do everything in one single instance?
Different instances.
Obviously, the different instances.
Different instances.
And OIC is no different. Okay, so we do the development in one OIC instance. We do SIT in a different OIC instance, UAT, and production. So when you go in here, initially you might have only dev instance, but when you reach SIT, you would have another OIC instance provision. So ideally, you will see 4 OIC instances if your client has already gone live. Dev, SIT, UAT, and production. You will not just see one, you will see 4 OIC instances. Now, how do you, when you create OIC instance, you just hit this button. And when you hit that button, these are the details that you have to enter. The first thing that you need to enter is a name. And normally we follow a naming convention here, which says, when we enter the short name of the client, and we do mention the phase of the project that you're managing in that instance, and we use OIC keyword. So if I'm creating this OIC instance as a production instance for HSBC, so I say HSBC production OIC. If it is for UAT or development, I use those appropriate keywords. Okay, so a shortcut to the client name. Here I said, geeks, what is the phase you're managing, and we use a OIC keyword. And I took the screenshot a couple of months back, guys. But if you try to create a OIC instance today, not a couple of months, in fact, I took the screenshot almost 4 or 5 months back. If you create a new OIC instance today, we will not see this option. Remember, I said OIC instance, we've got a new version, right? OIC is available in 2 different versions, Gen 2 and Gen 3. Gen 3 is phased out. It's an old version. Most of the clients, I wouldn't even hesitate to say all clients, but this very rare point, not 1% clients are still using Gen 2, but all of them have moved to Gen 3. All of them have moved to Gen 3. Okay. So when you create OIC instance today, you don't even get this choice. By default, OIC instance will be created as Gen 3. You don't even see this choice. It would only be Gen 3, and that would be selected by default, and this option will not be available at all. And that Gen 3 instance is what we're going to use in the sessions as well. You don't have to worry about Gen 2. When you create an OIC instance, it would be Gen 3 by default, and OCI administrator would have to select an edition for the OIC instance, whether he should create it as a standard edition or enterprise edition. Now let's say Abdul is leading this integration project, and OCI administrator pings Abdul in the messenger and asks him, Abdul, please tell me which edition of OIC instance do I need to go for? Is it a standard or enterprise? Do you know the answer now, Abdul? We don't know the answer now, because for you to answer this question, what do you need to know?
Right.
You need to know what is the differences between these 2 editions, right? So what is standard edition, what I get in it, and what is enterprise edition and what I get in it. Based on that, you can decide. So what are the questions that, so for Abdul to answer OCI admin, which edition he needs to go for, Abdul needs to know himself, or we need to know first of all what is standard and what is enterprise edition. Now, when you create an OIC instance, remember there are 2 editions that you can choose. If you create OIC instance as a standard edition, you get only integrations and VBCS. PCS will not be available. Okay, so when you create an OIC instance as a standard edition, you would see integrations and VBCS, but PCS will not be visible. PCS will not be showing up here. And what is another thing that is missing in the integrations? Okay, so PCS is missing, and in the integrations, when you look at the adapters that are available in the connections, you won't see on-prem application adapters here. You will only see cloud application adapters, but you won't see on-prem application adapters here. So if you have created OIC instance as a standard edition, first thing that would be missing is PCS. This would be missing. And what else would be missing in the integrations, guys? When you go to integration connections, try to create a new one. And when you search for Oracle here, so you see these adapters, guys, and you see the symbol here. What is it that we see, guys? You see a cloud symbol in the background. You see a cloud symbol in the background, right? What does it mean, guys? It means that it is a cloud application. So when you create OIC instance as a standard edition, you will only see those cloud adapters, guys. You see that there is an adapter called Oracle Database here, and this adapter will help you to talk to on-prem Oracle databases. In fact, we're going to cover this in the connectivity agent session. But for you to talk to on-prem databases or on-prem e-business suite applications or any other applications, what is it that we have to do? You will not be able to see these adapters if OIC instance was created as a standard edition, guys. If OIC was created as a standard edition, you would not see these on-prem adapters. Okay, so two things that would be missing in standard is PCS would be missing and cloud on-prem application adapters would also be missing. Now, what are the two questions that Abdul needs to ask himself guys before he goes back and answers OCI administrator? What is the first question that he needs to ask himself with the visibility that he has in the project so far or until that point? He needs to ask himself, do I need PCS? In the sense, does my team need PCS or not? If the answer is yes, what edition do we need to choose guys? What edition should Abdul's team choose?
Enterprise.
Enterprise edition.
Enterprise. Okay, logical, right? And what if the answer is no? They don't need PCS. What is the second question that Abdul needs to ask himself?
On-premise adapters are required or not?
Absolutely. So do I need on-prem adapters or not? And if the answer is no for that as well, they don't need PCS and they don't need on-prem adapters, then Abdul can ask the client or OCI administrator to create OIC instance as a standard edition. And if the answer is yes for either of this, what should be his answer? If the answer is yes for either of this, it has to be enterprise.
Yeah, they should go for enterprise.
Enterprise. And one important point is cost of enterprise edition, the initial licensing cost plus the messaging cost of enterprise edition is double that of a standard edition. I'm not exactly sure in terms of dollar terms, but if you are charged $1 here, it would be $2 that you would be charged in enterprise edition. Okay, and it makes sense, right? Because you're getting more features here. So the price of enterprise is double that of a standard. Now, whatever story I just explained, right? So you've understood that. Now, one of you might say, let's say Ramesh says, Prasad, all the story that you said is fine. Yes, today I don't need PCS and I don't need on-prem adapters. But let's say 1 month later, I get a new requirement from a client wherein I had to talk to on-prem database, or I have to integrate with eBusiness Suite, or maybe I need to build an approval process. So what do I need to do in that case? So today I don't need them, but I'm not sure whether I would need them or I might probably need them 3 weeks or 4 weeks down the line. So let me do it this way. Let me play it safe. Yes, I don't need these features today, but still I'll ask the client to go for enterprise so that in future, 3 weeks or 4 weeks down the line, when I get a requirement to use these two options, they are already available in my OIC instance. So let me play it safe. Even though I don't need these two today, I will still ask the client to go for enterprise edition. How many of you are with me on this, guys?
Yes.
Completely logical, right? So what, instead of, so you don't need to play it safe, because the reason is when you create OIC instance, you create OIC instance, you choose the edition. You choose the edition when you create OIC instance, and you can change it after. You can change it later on as well. So when you create OIC instance, you choose an edition. So if you don't need PCS and on-prem adapters, go for standard. And after you create OIC instance, remember, you would see the OIC instance showing up like this. And within the OIC instance, you will be able to see the edition. And when you create this instance, if you have probably chosen standard, you would see standard here. You can still go ahead and edit the OIC instance anytime you want. And you can change this edition from standard to enterprise or vice versa. You can change the edition from standard to enterprise or vice versa. So edition is something that you pick when you create a OIC instance, and even after it is something that you pick when you create OIC instance, and even after OIC instance is created, you can upgrade it or downgrade it as you wish. So there's absolutely no need to play it safe. Go for standard if that is sufficient. And tomorrow, if client has to If client needs either of these features, you can ask OCI administrator to just edit the OIC instance and change the edition from standard to enterprise or vice versa. And one important point, guys, if you do 10 OIC projects, you will see all the 10 clients going in for enterprise. Not because all of them need PCS. It's not that all of them need PCS. It's just that every client have a requirement to integrate with one on-prem application or the other. So it could be either a database server or on-prem FTP server or an e-business suite application. So every client would have at least a few on-prem applications that they have to integrate with. So not many clients use PCS, but every client has a requirement to use on-prem adapters. And that's why Oracle has cleverly plugged in this on-prem application bucket in Enterprise Edition. But yes, if you probably do an implementation project wherein a client doesn't have requirement to integrate with on-prem adapters, then you go for standard. So this is one choice that OCI administrator would have to make. And at this point, they would definitely ping you and ask, which edition do I need to go for? Do you guys know the answer now?
Yes, yeah.
It's enterprise.
Yeah. Now the second question is, the second thing that we need to select is a shape. Is it a development shape or a production? What's the difference between these two, first of all? When Oracle releases a new features in OIC instance, those new features would be released into OIC instances of development shape first. It would wait for 2 weeks for the bugs to come out, fix them, and only then those new features would be released into production instances. So when typically we create 4 instances of OIC, dev, SIT, UAT, and production, we would be creating dev and SIT as a development instance, as a development shape, so that whenever a new features are released, they would be released into our dev and SIT instances. And we're going to create UAT and production instances as a production shape. So that only after 2 weeks, after the instances are, when the new features are tested thoroughly, then they will be deployed to production. Dev and SIT, choose the development shape. UAT in production, we choose production. And the last bit that we have to choose is a license. Now, depending on the license type, remember some clients might already be using other Fusion middleware products from Oracle, and they might already have a license with them. Can you name a few Fusion middleware products, guys, if anyone is aware of it? Any Fusion middleware products that Oracle owns that you know of? Have you heard of SOA, ODI, MFT? So these are all the middleware products from Oracle, guys, Fusion middleware products. Oracle Data Integrator, SOA. So these are all the middleware products from Oracle. So if your client is already using them, and if they already have a license for them, if they already have a middleware license, then they would fall under this bucket, which is called as BYOL. BYOL. And what does BYOL means, guys? Bring your own license. Bring your own license. And if you fall in this bucket, yes, you select, if you already have a middleware license, here you need to mention the number of message packs you want to go for. Usually we start off with 1, and you can increase or decrease it as you wish. So similar to edition, you can also increase or decrease the message packs or update it later on after you create a OIC instance. And if you go for 1 message pack, and if your client has an existing license, if they have 1 message pack and if they go for existing license, then we need 20,000. Then you get 20,000 messages per hour. 1 message pack means 20,000 messages per hour. And if your client doesn't have a middleware license, they come under a new license bucket. which means one message pack gives you 5,000 messages in case client goes in for a new license. Now you might say, Prasad, what the hell is this message per hour? Can you please elaborate? One message pack, a new license means 5,000 messages per hour. Now to explain what this message per hour is, let me take you back into OIC instance and I'll pick up a specific integration. Just focus only on the bits that I'm explaining, guys. And I would go ahead and, so you see this REST API. This is a first integration, or let me go to a project so that there won't be any confusion. Yeah. So when you build the integrations in OIC, this would be the first integration that you build, a Hello World REST API. And after you build an integration, we normally do the unit testing. Yes, after we build the integration, we activate it and we do the unit testing by running it. So I'm trying to run my first integration. And after we build the integration, I'm trying to test it, passing in first name as Geeks. And when I pass in the first name as Geeks here, all this API is going to do is prefix hello to the first name, and it's going to give us back a response. So I go ahead and run it. And what do I see? I see that I'm getting back a greeting wherein hello space is prefixed to Geeks, and that is exactly what I see here. But the key point for you to notice is we'll be building the same integration as the first one for you starting tomorrow. Any integration you build in OIC, when that is triggered in OIC instance, any integration runs in OIC instance, doesn't matter how it is triggered, whether developer triggered it as part of unit testing or client might call it from outside of OIC using the endpoint URL, of the API, or integration might get triggered based on a schedule as well. So the triggering point doesn't matter. A simple point is whenever an integration runs in OIC instance, there will be a request generated, there would be an instance created, and that instance will have a unique ID called instance ID. It would have a unique ID called instance ID. And to keep it simple, and you see this instance ID here, and you can also see it from the monitoring section as well. So I'm in the testing page, right? I see the instance ID here. I'll be able to see that instance ID from the observability screen. So if you go into observability screen integrations, you would be able to see what all integrations are triggered just now. You see that this particular integration, a message is received against this API 2 minutes ago. And you see a message has been received. It is processed successfully. A message received and it is processed successfully. Now, if I, to keep it simple, guys, to keep it simple, and if I click on one, it will take me from integrations to instances, and you see the instance ID here. To keep it simple, one instance that you see here, one instance ID is equal to one message. Okay, so one instance ID is equal to one message. So yes, one instance is equal to at least one message, but in some cases, one instance could be counted as multiple messages. So one instance, one message, meaning every 1 hour, I can trigger up to 5,000 instances. I can have up to 5,000 instances created if I go for one message pack, because one message pack gives me 5,000 messages per hour. And whether those 5,000 messages are of one integration or 50 integrations or 100 integrations doesn't matter. To keep it simple, 5,000 requests I can trigger in 1 hour. But some cases, even though it is one instance, it might still be counted as multiple messages, depending on what you do within the integration. Say, for example, in the integration, this is a simple REST API, guys. I'm getting an input, I'm prefixing hello and sending it back. But tomorrow we might build a file-based integration, FPDA integration. We might pick up a file from FTP, pretty big file, and we process it. So if that file size, as long as that file size is less than or equal to 50 KB in size, one instance, one message. But in the integration, if you pick up a file which is 100 KB in size, even though it is one instance ID will be one message. But since the file size is exceeding 50 KB, how many 50s you have in 100, guys? 2 50s?
2.
So even though it is one instance, it will be counted as two messages. So if you want to get a PhD in billing, just go to Google, type in OIC billing. If you scroll down, you will be able to see the granular details here. So if you scroll down, so depending on what you do within the integration, even though it is one instance that is created, sometimes it could be counted as multiple messages. So for example, if you're processing a file, until 50 KB is fine. But the moment it exceeds 50 KB, I have to count the multiples of 50, and that many messages would be used up. And remember, you might, for this integration, I'm only receiving first name as input. It's a get endpoint. I receive only one template parameter as input. But tomorrow we build a purchase order REST API wherein you receive purchase order details as input. So if that purchase order details that you receive as input is less than 50 KB in size, fine. One instance, one message. What if it is 70 KB? What if you receive a 70 KB input payload? Even though it is one instance, it will be counted as two messages.
Excuse me, where we can see that 2 KB and 50 KB?
You can get into the integration details, get into it, and you will be able to see the details here. And the trace level that is selected here is production. If you choose it as a debug level, then you will be able to see all the details saying what is the exact size of the payload that you have received and so on. Okay. Now, as a developer, last thing we do is sit down with a pen and paper and calculate how many instances are getting calculated as how many messages. To keep it simple, it's not our headache. But as an integration developer, when you decide on what approach you need to follow within the integration, we have to bear this billing in mind. And I'll stress on this later on as well. When we do the event streaming related integration or file-based integration, I'll refer back to this the billing cost again. But we don't need to do the calculations manually. What we usually do is when OIC instance is created, we ask the client to go in for one message pack. And we go to the OIC monitoring section. And when you go to dashboards, you will be able to see how many messages are getting used every 1 hour. So you see the timeline here. You can change the timeline. If you look at the last 24 hours, so how many messages were used up between, say, 9 to 10? How many instances are used? 3 instances in total. Okay, so you see different colors because different trace levels and different statuses. Don't worry about them. So you see between 9 to 10, how many instances were used? 3 instances in total. Or let's keep it simple. So let's see how many instances are used between 4 to 5. 1 instance. Between 4 to 5, out of 5,000 instances I got from Oracle, I used only 1. So what would happen to that remaining 4,999 instances, guys? You would lose them. So please don't think that this is not a Airtel or a Jio mobile data pack wherein unused mobile data gets carried forward to the next one, right? So it doesn't work that way. So whatever, it's like, to keep it simple, 5,000 credits would be loaded into your bucket. You either use them, and it happens every hour. You either use them or you lose them. So between 4 to 5, I used only 1 instance, which means I've lost 4,999 instances. So what we usually do is we come in here and we track the usage of instances. So if you look at the daily usage, on an average, the maximum that I'm hitting is 800 messages per day. The maximum that I'm hitting is 800 messages per day. messages on an average. But if this limit keeps hitting, if it reaches the ceiling, say for example around 4,000, 3,500 or 4,000, if the usage of instances reach 3,500 to 4,000 per hour, in such cases, we usually ask the client, we go back to OCI administrator and we tell them, boss, please edit the OIC instance. You see one tag there, increase it to 2. This is something that you choose when you create instance, and you can increase or decrease it. So if you keep consistently hitting that 3,500 or 4,000 mark, we don't wait until it is too late. Instead, once we consistently hit 4,000 or 4,500 mark, we increase the number of message pack to 2. Now, one doubt that everybody would be waiting to show off when I say this particular point. So I have asked the client to go in for 1 message pack, but the number of messages triggered is more than 5,000 per hour. What would happen to those additional messages? Those additional messages will not be lost. They will be charged additionally. So if it is once in a while that you're hitting that 5,000 ceiling, that's fine. But if you're consistently hitting that ceiling of 5,000 messages per hour, you would be better off increasing the number of message packs to 2, because the number of those additional instances, right, will be charged heavily by Oracle. So we keep a tab on this. Depending on the usage, we start off with 1, and you can increase or decrease it. So these are the 3 options that OCI administrator has to choose when they have to create an instance: edition, share, license type. And as soon as user hits the create button here, in less than 5 minutes time, you should be able to see a OIC instance showing up in the table here. You would also see that in running state, it is a OIC Gen 3 instance. And we do have an option to copy the URL from here. So what is the URL of this OIC instance? You copy it. And this is what OCI administrator would do. They would copy the URL and they're going to throw it to you if you are an integration lead. So we're done with the first step. Okay, so we created OIC instance. What is the next step, guys? Let's say there are 5 members in the integration team. John Doe is an integration lead and you've got 4 developers. So we need to, for these 5 members have to be created as users first. Now, one important point, guys. If it is a Fusion Cloud instance, or if it is an EBS instance, what is it that we do, guys? You normally log into Fusion Cloud or EBS instance as an administrator. And if I have to grant access of this instance to an additional user, to a new user, what do? We log into the application as an administrator. We go to Tools, Security Console, create a new user from here, and grant them access. So if I have to grant access of this OIC instance to a new user, I would log in as an administrator first into the application, and I go to Security Console Users, create a new user, and grant them access. But please note, guys, we cannot do this in OIC instance. In OIC instance, if you go back, the only place where you will be able to see the user who has signed in is here. And apart from here, you will not find a place where you can create a user and grant access to this OIC instance. Even if you go into settings, you won't see that option. So where do we create users to grant them access to the OIC instance? See, I created this user. I created this OIC instance, and I need to grant access of this OIC instance to my integration team members. So where do I create those users from? So that is where IDCS comes into picture. IDCS stands for Identity Domain Cloud Service. So whatever cloud services that Oracle provides in cloud, for these infra services, whether it is OIC, whether it is SOA, CS, or Java Cloud Service, or any other service, Identity domain cloud service can be accessed from here. And this is like a central service which provides authentication services for all the infra services. So OCI administrator would go in here, identity and security, and they would click on users. And from here, this is a central repository where you create users. And if John Doe is an integration lead, I'm going to create a user for him as an OCI administrator. Some clients use the email address of the employee itself as a username. And if the client is using it, so then you can enter the email address itself here. That would be used as a username, and this checkbox is ticked. What does it mean is when this is checked, it means that what you enter an email here and that itself will be the username. And if your client doesn't want to use the entire email, if your client doesn't want to use the entire email as a username, then you can uncheck this so that it becomes 2 fields, and you can have a username which is different from email. So sometimes client doesn't want to have the domain itself in the username. They might want only the first name and last name. So the username would be like this in that case. So 5 users who needs to have access to the OIC instance, John Doe, and 4 integration developers would be created as users here. And whatever email address that you enter here, that would be email of our user, the employee. And as soon as we hit the create button, an activation email would be sent to this person. So John would receive an email immediately saying that, "Hi, John, welcome to OCI tenancy. Please click on a link below to activate your account." John Doe would receive an email immediately saying that a new Oracle Cloud account is created for you. Go ahead and click on the link below to activate it. So John would click on that activation link and set the password for his username. So John would receive an email where there is a username, and when he clicks on the activation link, he would set a password for himself. So John has the username and the password with him now. And similarly, other users are also created, other 4 users are also created here. So yes, we can create users one after the other here manually. And the obvious question that you ask is, what if I have to create users in bulk? Oracle has given a spreadsheet here. A CSV file upload option is available. So if you download the sample file and fill in the CSV file, you can import 1,000 users in just a mouse click. And after the users are created here, remember John receives an email with a username. He knows the password now. And immediately he tries, he would try to access as soon as he activated his account. If he tries to access this OIC instance after the user is created, would he be able to automatically access the OIC instance if I create a new user? Do you think that user would automatically be able to access the OIC instance here?
No.
They won't be able to. They would be able to see an error message like this. So if you try to access an OIC instance with a username and password, and if you don't have access to it, it would say so. Sorry, boss, please try contacting your administrator for help. Now that brings us to a third step. So what is the third step, guys? You created OIC instance and you created users. Third step is I need to grant access of OIC instance to the users. How do I do that? So that is where it brings us to a third step. I'll just duplicate this tab. So you need to go into whatever OIC instances that you provision here or you create here. Those OIC instances will be showing up in Oracle Cloud Services. So if you go to IDCS, you go to Oracle Cloud Services, you will be able to see whatever OIC instances are created here, you will be able to see them here. So you see this OIC instance, Bix production OIC instance here. So I go into that OIC instance in the Oracle Cloud Services. So this is step 1, create OIC instance. This is step 2, create users. And we are doing a step 3 now. We're going into Cloud Services and we are searching for that OIC instance. And when I go to that OIC instance, I click on users, I'll be able to see the users who have, these are the users who have access to this OIC instance. What are the 3 users who have access, guys? Prasad, user 1 and approver 1. But tell me one thing is, do you see an option to add or delete a user from here? Do you see plus or into mark?
No.
We don't see it. And this note tells you what you need to do. To manage these users, under resources list, you have to go to application roles. And under application roles, you will be able to see the seeded roles given by Oracle in OIC. Remember, guys, you cannot create any custom roles. So there are 8 seeded roles given by Oracle. And depending on what the user is supposed to do, in this OIC instance, you would assign appropriate role. So for example, if John Doe is an integration lead, usually the integration leads will be given a complete access on OIC instance. So they would be given a role called service administrator. So as you can make out from the name, this is like a master role of OIC. So if you assign service administrator role of production OIC instance to a user, how do I do it? I click on the plus option here and I go to users. You could see that only Prasad is administrator at the moment. I can see all other users here. And if I want to make Hemant or Sai Lohit administrators in OIC of production OIC instance, I have to choose them and click on assign. So this is how you choose the users and assign them to the roles. So depending on what that user is supposed to do in that OIC instance, we need to assign appropriate roles. So if a user needs to have complete access on production OIC instance, then you assign service administrator role to those users, so that what would happen? So here Prasad is an administrator, right? So which means when Prasad logs into this OIC instance, he will be able to see, when Prasad logs into OIC instance and I did log in here, he'll be able to see all the options, including the settings. Yes, Prasad can certainly build integrations, VBCS and PCS apps, and he can also make changes related to settings as well. He can basically do the development as well as administration in the OIC instance. Now, how about the other team members, guys? You have Vyom, Ritesh, and other developers, right? So these developers also should be able to access this OIC instance. But they should not be able to change the settings. They should not be able to change the settings here. They should not be able to change the settings. And when they're not able to change the settings, when they should not be able to change the settings, in such cases, I would assign them service developer role. So if you have got a person who should be able to log into OIC instance and they should be able to do the development but not the administration, then you would assign a service developer role. And to which user service developer role is assigned? I've assigned it to user 1 and approver 1. Remember, all of you were also given access to user 1, which has a developer access, meaning when you log into OIC instance, you will be able to see all these options except settings. Yes, you can build integrations, you can build VBCS apps, PCS applications, etc., but you cannot change the settings here. So when you log into OIC instance in a project, real-time project, and if you want to know whether you have admin access or not, do you need to go to OCI administrator and ask him what is the role that is assigned to you guys, or can you easily make out by just clicking on the navigator here?
By clicking in if settings option is available,
if settings is available, that means you are an administrator. If you don't see it, that means you are a developer. And usually you get developer access, guys, unless you are a lead. And there are 3 steps that we have seen, right? So we have seen how to create OIC instance, and we have seen how to create users. And the 3rd step is grant access of OIC instance to the users by assigning them roles. Now, if I have to create, assume that this is production, right? But assume that it is dev instance. Let's say we need to create SIT instance now. So when I have to create a new SIT instance, which of these 3 steps I need to repeat, guys? Should I create a new OIC instance? First of all, we should be able to create a new OIC instance, right? Looks like there's a bug. I think when I click on the screen and when I click on create, it is opening up. And what is it that we see here? It is, it is, since it is a free account, it is showing me create a Gen 2 instance, but not Gen 3. But that's okay. It would unnecessarily add to confusion. So if I have to create a new OIC instance and grant access to the users, which of these 3 steps should I repeat, guys? First of all, I have to create a new OIC instance. So step 1 is very much required. Yes or no, guys? And how about second step? Do I have to create users again?
No.
Not really required, because the users that you are defining, you are doing it in cloud.oracle.com. It's like a central repository. So you're not going to define users multiple times. User creation is only one time activity. And do I need to grant access of, so you see production, right? So you would see 3 other instances. So if U8 instance is created, I definitely have to repeat the 3rd step. So I need to search for that particular OIC instance here. I have to search for that OIC instance here. And within that OIC instance, I need to assign roles. I need to assign the roles to that in that OIC instance. Okay. So out of 3 steps, I have to perform step 1. So when you create a first OIC instance, dev OIC instance, you create a OIC instance, create a user, grant them access. But after that onwards, when it is SIT, UAT or production, you create OIC instance, you don't have to create users again. But you need to search for that particular OIC instance here, SIT or UAT or production. You have to choose what role you need to assign to the user. So what it basically means is, Abdul can be an administrator in a dev SIT instances. He can be a developer in UAT instance, but he might get only a monitor role in production instance. Okay, because this role assignment that you do is at an instance level, is at an OIC instance level. So 8 roles are given by Oracle. Administrator is like a root access. You get a complete control. Developer, everything that you need to do the development. And apart from these 2 roles, there are other roles which give very limited access to the users. Let's say, for example, you have monitor, which means the user would be able to get access to the observability screen. And they should be able to only monitor the integrations, but not do any build. Deployer, we have to migrate the components built in one instance. We need to deploy them to a higher instance, for which you have a user created with deployer role for that deployment activity. And you also have a service user, viewer, end user, and invoker role. So these roles would help you. These roles grant a very limited access to the users. These roles give very limited access to the users. So, so if you create a VBCS application, a custom web app, and let's say you have 3,000 employees and they have to use that VBCS application. So to those users, you would be assigning them a service end user role so that they can just access the VBCS application as an end user. So depending on what exactly the user is supposed to do in that OIC instance, you would be given access to it. And again, as usual, if you want to delve deep into the roles, you just have to go to Google, type in OIC roles. And one important thing I want to show you here is, yes, you see a table here. You will be able to see the roles. And with the roles, you will be able to see what all screens you will be able to see in OIC. So within OIC instance, these are the navigation options you see. These are the navigation options you see within OIC instance. And these are the roles that we can assign to the user. These are the roles that we can assign to the user. These are the roles that you can assign to the user. And depending on the role would control which of the screens in OIC you will be able to see. If you're an administrator, you can see everything. If you are a developer, you can see everything minus. What's the only thing that you cannot see as a developer? Settings. In other words, it is service developer plus settings, that would be administrator. And the other roles give very limited access to the users. Sometimes what would happen, guys? After we build OIC instances, sometimes what would happen is after we build OIC instances, after we build integrations in OIC, we share that integration endpoint URL with the client. So what clients would do, they would use our, say for example, I created this REST API. I do the unit testing, it's working fine. I'm going to share this integration endpoint details with the client and ask them to call my API. And usually when I build when we build integrations in OIC, we will use tokens as an authentication mechanism. We will use OAuth token as an authentication mechanism. And we tell the third party that when they call our integration endpoint, so when they call our integration, we tell them that when you call my integration, first of all, for the integration, how do they call it? We share the integration endpoint URL with them. Okay, so we share this integration endpoint URL with them. And we tell the client that when you call my integration, you pass in OAuth token as an authentication mechanism. Now, what is OAuth token? Why is it more secure? Why is it recommended? And all that we cover when we build the first REST API, or after we build the first REST API, when we are about to test it, I'll talk about everything that you need to know related to OAuth in that session. But usually after we build the API, we share the endpoint URL with them. And we will also share details required to generate OAuth token with that third party. A third party uses those details that we share with them, and they generate OAuth token. They generate OAuth token, and they would use it to trigger the integration. But sometimes what client would say is, my third party, my system is quite old, which is supposed to trigger your integration, and our system doesn't have the capability to generate OAuth tokens. In which case, the only option that we have is we have to use a basic auth. Instead of OAuth, we have to use basic auth. Because the other system is saying, the other system which is supposed to consume my endpoint is saying that the system is quite old and they can pass in authentication details only as basic auth. So in which case, and if I use basic auth, I don't have an option, but I have to pass in OIC username and a password to the third party. Why am I doing this? Because the other system is saying that they cannot generate OAuth tokens. This is a preferred one. And only since the other system is saying that they cannot pass in tokens, I said basic auth. And if you look at this OIC instance, tell me one thing, guys. Are you guys able to spot the OIC instance link in this endpoint URL? Isn't this our OIC instance link, guys? Yes or no? And is there a chance that the third party might act smart and try to log into this OIC instance with a username and password that we shared with them? So I shared a username and password asking them to invoke my integration with this. But a third party, there's always a chance that they can act smart and try to log into OIC instance with that username and password. Is it possible?
There should be some security, right?
Yeah. So what is that some security here? That's the reason behind explaining all this story now. So what role are we going to assign to the user to safeguard our OIC instance in that case?
End user.
Not end user. We would assign service invoker role.
Invoker, okay.
So if you assign service invoker role to the user, and when you assign service invoker role to the user, and even if that third party tries to act smart and log into the OIC instance with that username and password, service invoker role, a user logs in, these are the screens you have in OIC. And what are the screens will he be able to see? Can he see any of the screens in OIC?
No, nothing.
He cannot see anything. So it's like we telling them, boss, we're smarter than you. Just use the logins only for intended purposes, which is to invoke the service. You cannot do any other nonsense. Okay. So yes, depending on the usage, depending on the requirements, you would be assigning or depending on what exactly the person is supposed to do in that OIC instance, you would assign appropriate roles. I'm not going to take any questions related to OAuth or basic auth today. I've explained this only to tell you that service invoker role is what we assign to some of the users when we share those logins with the third parties who say that they cannot generate OAuth token to call our endpoints. What is OAuth? What is basic auth? Which one is better and how does it work? There's a different story altogether attached to it. We'll cover it in 4th or 5th session from now. So these are the 3 steps. So these are whatever we covered today. We've seen basically 3 steps: create OIC instance, users, and grant them access. Who is going to do all of this in real time? Not you or me. It would be done by OCI administrators.
Yes.
But when OCI administrators would perform those steps, they might ask you a few questions like, what edition do I need to pick up? What shape do I need to pick up? How many message packs do I need to go in for? And all that. And all of you have the answer now. And in starting from tomorrow's session, we'll get started with building integrations in OIC. Any questions, guys?
Prasad, can you explain about that building also? I mean, that how many users we are able to, and how many integration we are creating, how much building it will be happening.
Basically, he's trying to ask about how Oracle charges, right? That is the question, I guess.
Is that the question, Ramesh?
Yes, right, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure on the licensing cost on how much Oracle charges for a message in OIC instance, and it varies from client to client as well. It depends on how many other Oracle products that your client is using and all that. I don't know the exact dollar licensing cost. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
It will be monthly or weekly, Prasad? That at least that you should know, right? How Oracle charges. Like
you usually when a client goes in for a cloud.oracle.com, when they go in for OCI account, they would buy the credits. They would buy the credits, and there would be roughly 20,000 credits or 30,000 credits that they buy, are paying in few thousands of dollars to Oracle. And as and when you provision the services from cloud.oracle.com, your credits that are available in that account will keep getting used up. Okay. And does it get used up every day or every week? Or it's not like on Sunday morning Oracle is going to charge your account. So it is. See, remember this course OIC, right? It is a PaaS product, platform as a service product. So in case of SaaS, in case it is a SaaS, you receive a bill from Oracle at the month end. When I say you, I'm referring to you as a client, and the bill that you're going to receive will depend on the number of users configured in OIC instance. But in the case of OIC, what type of instance it is, and how many messages are you using, how many message packs you have gone in for. So those things are going to determine how many credits would be consumed from your cloud.oracle.com account. Okay, so it's not a monthly billing or a weekly billing. So you have credits used there. You have a credit balance showing up here, and it keeps getting used up as and when you provision OIC instances or as and when you use the messages within it. Okay, any other questions, guys?
it's like prepaid and postpaid, right? PaaS
Correct.
means prepaid and SaaS means postpaid, something like that.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys, from anyone?
No, Prasad,
Okay.
I think the session was really good, Prasad, thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, thank you. See you tomorrow, guys, and we'll get started with building integrations in OIC from tomorrow.